It's been 7 days since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared, and the search for the missing jetliner just keeps expanding. U.S. officials say the plane continued to send data pings for several hours after its last known point of contact over the South China Sea. They're suggesting the jet flew for 4 or 5 more hours, possibly into the Indian Ocean. And that is where the search has been expanded. A senior U.S. official tells CNN it is probably a significant likelihood the plane is at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. The United States is sending a Navy destroyer, the USS Kidd, and its most advanced surveillance aircraft, the Poseidon P-8, to the area to help in the search. Jim Clancy is in Kuala Lumpur for us. He joins us now with the latest on the search from there. Jim, hello.
We have now focused on the right area. CNN has been reporting from here for days that the plane, after it changed course, set a bearing and began to travel towards the Indian Ocean. This was a source that told CNN this, a senior Air Force officer here who had seen the raw radar data. Officials never contradicted that, but they said they had to have it analyzed, all the data analyzed by U.S. officials, FAA, NTSB. That apparently has been done. And at least we have an idea of where to look today. It's an important point, of course, because the families are waiting. They want to hear. After the plane made this turn, we are told that it erratically went up and down in altitude for a brief period of time. Now, some reports are saying that it had stabilized again at cruising altitude of about 35,000 feet as it continued, as we would presume, into the area of the Indian Ocean. Now, if we have a radar track from Indonesian radar, it's possible that Indonesian radar, I should say, we know the Malaysian radar tracked it for a while. We should be able to put that together. Perhaps satellite surveillance will add more information to it. But as one U.S. official said, it's almost certain that it's at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. This is what one scenario that was laid out by attorney and aviation expert Mary Schiavo, what she had to say. Listen.
One of the things that jumps out at me is the possibility of something other than a terrorist act, that a catastrophic occurrence in the airplane that would take out the initial communication system, which would explain the turn back, and the garbled communication that the one of the other pilots, I guess it was a Japan pilot, reported, and then the spooling down of the systems.
Spooling down of the systems. This is a jetliner which, if the pilot didn't have oxygen, everybody on the plane would have gone to sleep. The plane would have continued to fly until it was losing altitude or until it ran out of fuel. This is what the questions that are confronting officials now. But the data pings that we're learning about may very closely tell us where this plane was last seen, where they should be looking for any signs that the missing jetliner went into the sea. Back to you, Natalie.
Yeah, Jim, and now that the search area has now become so huge, the Indian Ocean, and certainly all this technology going there to search for it, is there a belief that it will be found, of course, if it is in the ocean at some point?
Well, remember, you've got the heading, you've got the radar track, at least initially. I haven't heard. I was on the line with the Prime Minister's office trying to find out just a few minutes before we went on air to find out, did it maintain the same bearing the whole time? That would seem to be the most likely thing for it to do if nobody was really at the controls of the plane. The 777 is a remarkable aircraft. And if it did that, it would try to keep itself aloft, to keep itself on its last bearing and head in that way. The challenges of the Indian Ocean are great. Yes, it's a huge expanse. That data may be able to narrow down that search to a rather small area, but there's another challenge. The average depth of the ocean there, I think, is about 8,000 meters. Or no, 8,000 is the deepest part. And then we have an average depth of around 4,000 meters. So, you know, it's the deepness of it all and the recovery of the black box that's going to be the real challenge. Natalie?
Mystifying. All right. Thank you so much, Jim Clancy, for us there following developments in Kuala Lumpur. Well, Malaysian officials say 2 of the plane's communication systems were shut down separately 14 minutes apart. ABC Network aviation analyst John Nance spoke with CNN's Aaron Burnett about that report.
Had to have been some sort of a deliberate act, because the problem is that if you had a catastrophic failure that was even systematically shutting down the electrics, and this is a very resilient airplane as far as all the electrical systems are concerned, you probably would not have that length of time between them. I mean, could we construct a scenario in which that might happen with a progressive fire or something? Yes, but it would be very, very far out. Much more likely a human being was pulling circuit breakers at a sequential time. It's hard to come up with any conclusions at this point, but when you postulate that somebody was pulling circuit breakers, that has to be somebody who knows what they're doing, and that bodes well for the idea that there was a pilot doing that. Maybe not one of the aircraft's pilots, one of the 2 that were assigned to that flight, but somebody who knew what they were doing.
Transponders, pings, radar blips. We're getting all kinds of information as this huge mystery surrounding Flight 370 is starting to get a little overwhelming. Here to help us sort it out on the phone from Phoenix is aviation expert Jim Tillman. We appreciate, Mr. Tillman, you being with us once again. So I first want to start by asking you, we're hearing about pings. Do pings necessarily mean the plane was still flying and sending out pings, radar blips, if you will, or is a ping coming from the ocean? What exactly does it represent?
I understand that first of all, the definition of a ping has been played back and forth a little bit over the course of this investigation. And the pings that they're discussing that were continuing, to me, in my mind, were not really pings. They were packs of information that was derived from maintenance sources that are available with the engines. And the engines are sending data back through these packs, which can be sent separately. I mean, you might have a pack that sits there and waits until the traffic is low enough, and then it sends a pack forward with that information. They're calling that a ping. The thing that I thought was a ping was the sounds that are made once these boxes, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, actually hit water. That turns on this emergency transmission so that you begin to get these pings. The only other ping-like thing, I thought, was the emergency locator transmitter, which is activated when you hit land, when you actually have an impact. Then this transmitter begins to emit a tone that can be picked up even from a satellite.
We were just hearing from the ABC analyst that was reporting on the communication systems that turned off 14 minutes apart. Do you think humans turned it off?
I think they had to. I mean, there's no such thing as automatically going offline like that. I mean, you know, and 14 minutes apart. Come on. I mean, I understand it was the A-card system which went off first. That's the one that really is supposed to be transmitting this data from the machine, from the engines and all. And then the other has to do with more of the information that goes to air traffic controllers so that they'll know where you are and what you're doing and all that sort of thing. That's transponder. That was supposed to be 14 minutes between those 2 events that took place. I can't imagine, first of all, anybody intentionally turning off any of those devices, but they're supposedly turned off 14 minutes apart with transponders turning off after the other items. So, yes, I think somebody actually physically did that.
Jim Tillman, with so many more questions we would like to ask you. We'll probably talk with you again as this mystery continues. Thank you for joining us. Turning now to another story that's developed.